She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies.
Give me every little detail.
Of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
The first thing that came into my head was, it means everything. It means everything. I just don't understand why I'm alive if I'm not going after the things that I want.
Hey there, welcome to Detail Therapy. You just heard a snippet from Amy's chat with Brittany Krystle, host of the Beyond Influential podcast, who we're going to hear more from in just a little bit. In this episode, you'll hear Brittany talk about her journey from attorney to personal branding expert, what she learned from working with the Gary Vaynerchuk and the hustle mindset, and spoiler alert, he sounds just as awesome as you would think, as well as her tips for starting a presence on none other than LinkedIn. We have quite a bit to get into with Brittany today, but as you can probably hear, I am not the wonderful and talented Amy Landino. I'm Meg Kearns, and I'll be filling in for Amy today. I'm stepping in due to a family emergency, but it was really important to Amy that she shares this episode with you. As for me, I'm the host of the Life, Marriage, and a Baby Carriage podcast alongside my husband that talks about relationships, parenting, and navigating life in general. I'm a wife, mother of 3 kiddos and 1 dog, and a business owner. I work in the digital marketing space, and this discussion is right up my alley. I really love Amy's chat with Brittany in this episode. It's an excellent reminder that the path to the life you want isn't always a straight line, but it is an experience in mindset and self-discovery. Today's review shout-out goes to Christina Nicholson for her review of the podcast on iTunes. She said, "Of course this podcast would be amazing. Amy's doing it and I'm loving it. It's a great balance of work and life and all the things." I couldn't agree more, Christina. Remember that everything they talk about here on the show can be found on the show notes website, which is detailspodcast.com. So if you hear Brittany talk about a platform she recommends or a podcast episode she mentions, we will link to everything in the interviews as much as possible in those show notes. Remember, it's all about the details, so go get them. With that, let's get into Amy's chat with her next guest. Today, she's sitting down with Brittany Krystle. Brittany is the host of the Beyond Influential podcast, a personal branding and social growth expert, and a non-practicing lawyer. Amy is sitting down with Brittany today in her Los Angeles, California apartment complex, because if you want the details on going from law offices to LinkedIn presences and finding the fulfillment in your career, Brittany is the expert. So let's get into it, and welcome to the show, Brittany Krystle.
Brittany Krystle, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Amy.
Let me ask you, why do you create?
Why do I create? I create because I know that is the best way that I can actually affect change at scale. Mm-hmm. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous and hokey, and that's not what I thought it would be when I was growing up. But I realized, and we'll probably get into this story, during the time that I was actually working for GaryVee, what was happening with him putting out content and then the reaction he was getting and what was happening in those people's lives. And I was like, how can I do this too? And then from there, it's been creating is what helps me help other people.
I love that. I love that. So I definitely want to talk about the fact that you worked with Gary, because a lot of people know I'm a big fan of Gary. He's been a digital mentor of mine for a long time. But I kind of want to start with like where you started from. So at this point, you're like a personal branding expert. You have the podcast Beyond Influential, but you're also a non-practicing attorney. So I feel like we need to talk about that recovery process first, right? So how did you go from attorney to now non-practicing and more in this digital personal branding marketing space?
So I think it's funny. The first question is, why do you create? And when I think about my upbringing, I never thought about creating. I was not a creative. That never even entered my brain. Growing up, I was, a lot of entrepreneurial stories. You're not supposed to be a great student. I was a very good student. I was good at reading and writing.
That makes me mad at you. Dang it.
But it was the kind of thing where growing up, it was like, okay, you get to be, I wasn't great at math, so doctor or lawyer, accountant was kind of off the table. If you look at my high school yearbook, actually my senior page, I think people were like, oh, you're going to be an entertainment lawyer. Like, I thought I was going to be an entertainment lawyer. I love television. I always knew what would stay on TV. I knew I had a sense
Where'd you
of
grow up?
something. Calabasas.
Okay.
Home
So
to the Kardashians.
okay. That is such a California thing for people to think, like, oh, you're going to be an entertainment attorney when you grow up.
It was the kind of thing. I played basketball too. I was either going to be a sports attorney or I was going to be an entertainment attorney, because basically working in either sports or entertainment by itself was, in quotes, risky, but being a lawyer was secure. And so I was like, how can I work in an industry that seems fun, but make money and be secure? And so
I remember having that same idea. Lawyer, security.
That is not true at all.
Yeah.
Like, that is just not the case. So I rushed actually to get through school. I graduated college in 3 years.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Thank you. And then I worked at I thought I was going to travel, and I didn't do any of that. I was so busy to get to this money that I thought was going to be the big change.
Yeah.
I was like, no, when I have money, like, it'll be fine and I can do whatever I want. And that just seemed to be, I think growing up in Calabasas kind of makes that the thing. Like, that was the goal. You network with people. Like, these are the people who you want to be around. And I was working at Coldwell Banker in their in-house legal department, and I was having doubts that I wanted to go to law school. I was like, I don't know. It was boring me. And my parents were like, no, like, just take the LSAT, see where you get in. Got in. I went to Georgetown for law school. I was there when the economy was tanking. You were normally guaranteed pretty much a big firm job at $160 a year. Like 2 months in, I was like, this is not for me, just in school. And my parents were like, no, and they're not lawyers. They're like, no, nobody likes school. They like the practice.
Right.
I did 2 summers. I was doing securities regulations litigation, which is not entertainment law.
Which is a great way to talk you out of it.
And the people were miserable. You know, when you look at, well, now I feel like people are looking at YouTubers. You look at people whose lives you think you want. I was like 22 years old. I had a secretary who was like 30 years older than me. I was making great money. And I'm not a crier. I was crying every day driving. This was in New Jersey. I was driving from New York to New Jersey for this firm this second summer, just crying every morning. I only had to go for 12 weeks. I cracked around week 5. I was like, this cannot be the rest of my life. I can't do it.
That's good you got that figured out really early. A lot of people would just like sit in that and say, like, I guess this is my life.
I am super fortunate that I got that out of the way early, because I then, though I was reasonable, I was like, I'm going to finish the school. I passed the bar in New York. Great. And then I moved back to LA to actually start working in entertainment to see if I could work in television in some capacity, but more in a business sense. I never thought, again, no creative. That was not what I thought I was destined to do.
Still just chasing the money.
Well, at this point I realized, so no, I took a job for $30,000 at that point to start, because that's when I realized, so that was the realization point for me, was that money is not the answer. Like, I didn't care how much they paid me. I was just going to cry if I had to stay there. So that was that turning point.
That's a big moment to have. You really change your mind about a lot of things. You've been driven by this one thing for the most part. I mean, like, I'm sure there were other things, but you're driven by like, oh, okay, this is the big goal. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I might have a better goal than that. And it's to find some sort of like fulfillment and happiness in my career. I want to work hard, but it doesn't always have to equate to, I think that's a big, like, when we always say this, but it is kind of a millennial thing, right? Where we decide, like, we care just as much about fulfillment as we do how much we're getting paid to do a job. We want to be paid fairly, but we want to feel like we're doing something that means something to us. And even to the point where our generation is choosing where they're going to live before they even get a job, because they want to live somewhere cool or vibrant or really enjoy the atmosphere and then go from there.
And it is a very millennial thing, but I was definitely in an environment that did not support that. Pretty much deciding that you don't want to work in law and then deciding that you're going to take a $30,000 job at a talent agency as an assistant sounds crazy to literally everybody who was in my class, sounded crazy to my parents, sounded crazy to everyone. And there were definitely times during that next part where I was like, why am I doing this? But I had my quarter life crisis slightly early. I just couldn't live that way. I couldn't stand the thought that was going to be it. But I also knew that, and I think this helps with the confidence thing, I knew because I had done well at school that I had some sort of talent. I was like, I know I can do something. I'm not unemployable. I just don't know what it is.
Right. Well, and that's so important too, because it's like you want to go out for the right job. So you have to know what that skill set is, because you can't sell yourself if you don't. how do we get to now? How do we get to the fact that you're focused on more of this personal branding? I mean, you ended up at VaynerMedia for a period of time. How long did you work there? How did that sort of come about after this entertainment stint, I guess?
So just from the entertainment perspective, growing up, like I said, I thought I knew something about marketing and branding. I knew something about TV. I was like, I know what will stay on. I don't know why. I just know what I like, and what I like happens to work. So like I could watch a pilot and it would stay on. So I worked, a lot of lawyers become agents. So I started at the talent agency, and it turned out that they were just deal brokers. Turns out I don't like only reading the script and just being a deal broker. You get no creative input. This is when I started to realize I actually did care about creativity in some capacity, but I hadn't thought about it. So then I was at a production company, and there like a manager is not only, they're not an agent technically, but not only do they help with the deal, but they can also produce. But there were assistants who were there for 7 years, never getting promoted. It was a really weird space. So I was like, this isn't working for me. I don't like, just like with college, I like seeing the system, and then I like being able to do what I need to do within it. And so for somebody to tell me that I need to wait 7 years to be worthy did not fly with me, especially in an industry that really isn't built on merit. So I ended up at a production company. At this point, and I sound old, but I'm a millennial, reality TV is big. Like, the internet's happening, but it's reality TV. So I worked at a production company in reality television, and that was interesting. And I was working in development, and I got to come up with ideas. But that person needs to go pitch to networks. And I was like, I want to be the person that tells you what we're going to watch. So that means I need to go work at a network. So I did my time, I did my year, because it's usually like a year on a desk or in whatever role. Sure. And so I ended up at, I ended up at the Lifetime Network.
Oh, wow.
And in their production development, and doing reality TV stuff. And that was very corporate. And I guess I just didn't realize the dynamics that are involved in getting a show on the air, and the different political things happening. And it's hard to move up when they're incumbents. And how do you decide who's a good executive, who's choosing these shows? It was a weird thing. And another place where I just felt like this is a dead end. I can't see how I can win in this system. Yeah. So I started studying to go to business school. My parents, God bless them, I love them, but they were like, you probably just going to need to go back to school. Everybody was like, you can't transition careers. And at this point, actually, when I was at Lifetime, I started paying attention to the marketing department. What they were doing on social and marketing the shows was getting super interesting to me. I wasn't watching TV as much anymore. I was spending all my time on my phone. Yeah. And my boyfriend sent me a Gary Vaynerchuk tweet, and this was in 2014. And he was like, you should look into this guy. I don't think you need to go to business school. It was just a tweet that said he was opening an LA office. And I think the LA office opened February of 2014. Got that tweet probably like in the summer. And then I went through 5 rounds of interviews. I picked a job I thought I could get off the website just randomly. And I was like, nobody will get a call from just a random resume. Because in Hollywood, if you didn't know somebody, nobody would talk to you. Right. And I got a call. And I started in August of 2014.
Wow. And how long were you there?
So I left Vayner just entirely May 2017.
Okay.
So I was in LA for 4 months before I met Gary at the Christmas party, and we happened to be on the same trivia team. And long story short, we hit it off. He came back the next month, and it was like, you're overqualified for what you do. What do you really want to be doing? Because I took an entry-level job to get in at Vayner.
So then what did the job become there? Is that sort of where like you started building a lot of this personal branding expertise, and how did it go from there?
So when I started, I was in project management, and project management there was the in-between between the creative and the accounts. So I got to see how the whole system works and manage it. So I was working on, accounts from Honda and Naked Juice and all sorts of big brands. It was the big brand stuff. Yeah. And that was cool, but I knew that wasn't for me. Around this time, I'm consuming a lot of types of Gary-type content. I already knew at this point I probably needed to work for myself at some point. But my goal was to, when Gary asked me when we sat down, he was like, you're overqualified for what you do. I was like, I play poker. I actually wanted to help him invest his money. Like, that was my goal. He had a seed fund that's now gotten huge, and now it's like an investment thing. But really, I wanted to invest in startups. I was like, I know I have some kind of intuition. That's what I want to do. Yeah. And he was like, look into growth hacking. He was like, I don't know if that, he was like, look into growth, talk to a few people, talk to me the next month. Would you consider moving to New York? And every month for the next few months, he would ask me if I'd consider moving to New York. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I've lived in New York, but depends what I'd be doing.
Right.
And basically in the summer of that year of 2015, he was like, listen, I'm about to get really serious about my personal brand. I think you know something about influencers and influence. I think you know something about growth. Give me a year. Come out and give me a year.
Excellent.
And we'll go from there. And so in my head, I was like, okay, this is my MBA. I'm going to work my face off. And at the end of this year, I am going to pitch him a startup idea that hopefully he will invest in. That was my plan going in.
Yeah.
100%.
I love how goal-driven you are. This is so relatable. Please keep going.
So then I moved to New York in October. And people were funny because, yeah, you know, he paid me enough to live in New York for sure. Like, it was nice to get that.
Sure. Yeah.
I knew I needed that covered, but I didn't go out with a title. I didn't care about that. There's some people who really care about certain kinds of structure and things like that. We're like, oh, what's your title? I'm like, I don't know. I think it was like growth or something eventually. It was like, make one up. Like,
Get the growth girl over here.
Yeah, and so I moved in October. The team was still pretty small. It was like a handful, like, I don't know, like 6 people. Ask GaryVee was happening. There was no Daily V yet. I had to learn how to do everything. This was world's greatest opportunity. You know, it's like right place, right time, but right person also.
Yeah.
And from getting to optimize on YouTube to having to find later on 750 influencers to hold his book for free, to helping with Instagram stuff, I learned how to run paid ads. I needed to know how to optimize on every channel. At a certain point, at least for 9 months or more, he was like, oh, would you want to write? Like, can you write? I was like, yeah. Started ghost writing for him. I was writing all of his articles at a certain point. PR and distribution. There was a point where Gary wasn't who he is now. Where I was writing to papers in like middle of nowhere in Nebraska, just being like, oh, like your business section, just finding an editor's email.
Yeah.
Would you be interested? Gary Vaynerchuk is a blah, 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 blah. Would you be interested in syndicating this content?
So like traditional PR almost, like
hand-to-hand combat.
Wow.
And I was just doing that. And then, so basically during this time, I think the first 3 months was just preparation for this book. He wanted the Ask Gary Vee book to be a huge deal. He wanted just his brand to be a huge deal. He knew this was the time. And basically, because I had to find all of those influencers for free, I was doing them from my account. Because if you get a message from Gary, that's always Gary. And if he likes it, that's always him. I love that about it.
Yep.
But I was building these relationships. And so basically I was like DMing all these people, going down this list, just DMing them, asking to send them this book for free if they could hold it before the launch. And there were so many people who I thought not only would not get back to me, but they got back to me and they told me that the reason that they do what they do is because Gary changed their life with Crush It. I haven't read Crush It. I wouldn't tell Gary. But
we'll leave that part out.
Yeah. But just getting that response.
Yeah.
And it was like, these are real, they're real people, real names that I've heard and seen, and this is it. Because before all this, I wasn't a Gary fan. I didn't know him. I wasn't part of this like business world, the world that I'm in now. It was, it's like, oh, I'm putting out content.
Yeah.
But then I was seeing the responses. And then just as we were putting out content and learning to chop it up, I got to a point where I could watch, 15 minutes of Gary. I knew which 2 clips. I can give a Gary keynote. I know which article. I know which image quotes, and I know where to put them.
Yeah.
And so I also knew that everything Gary does, he tests on himself for Vayner. So I knew he was going to be building out Vayner Talent, which is the personal branding arm of the agency. So he was bringing people in during this time who were, A-list people you'd recognize, and they would pick the team's brain on what they should be doing. And I love that.
That's cool.
For me, I fell in love with personal branding, and I told Gary, like, as soon as you do this talent thing, whatever, it didn't even have a name.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
But as soon as that was happening, I was like, this is it. And that's kind of what was going on. And I just fell in love with it. And Gary's a star. He is a star. I knew I needed to be able to replicate it with someone else. So I had the model down. But
you need
Gary, you look at Gary drops quotes.
Right.
Most people do not.
He's ready for it.
He is. And so it's not the same.
How important do you think that is? Like, does somebody need to be the perfect type of personality in order for you to be able to do what you do really well? So
no.
See,
I guess I guess something I'm great at is pulling it out of somebody, pulling what's special out of them. I can figure out really quickly what's special about someone. I like asking questions. Part of why I started a podcast, probably part of why I ended up, going the law route. So to me, there's something interesting and special about everybody. I always joke, like if you put like 1,000 accountants in front of me and they all work in the same area, I can tell you what's different about each one of them. So they're going to be able to make different content and resonate with different people. But people don't, the problem with that is people don't realize that they're interesting, or people don't think that they're interesting. And there's a whole mindset component to what I do that now I've completely realized is something that needs to be addressed head on, because I don't build Garys. I'm not interested in making other people like Gary.
That's super important for you to communicate too, because it's great to say who your clients are and say look, we really have gotten results with this because this is what we figured out along the way. But Gary's tough competition. Also super woo, yeah, make me the next Gary. But at the same time,
I don't sell the unsellable. So if somebody doesn't even believe in social selling, I'm not even going to have that conversation because it's too hard to explain what's going on. But for the most part, people who are interested in talking to me understand what needs to happen. This is why I like working with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial-minded people, is because they have a why. You started this about the why. The why is so important. Gary's at a level that he has, huge aspirations. Right. But for the most part, people they have a gift. They do something for a reason. They're working in whatever industry. They want to be sharing their thoughts. People want to be getting out there. It's that fear that nobody cares. But I think, and again, this might just be more particular to me, what makes someone special is so interesting. The reason you become an accountant or an insurance agent or whatever, let's say it's a bland thing and not just sexy entrepreneur with the jets. Yeah. There is something super talented about you and the need that other people have for whatever it is your talent is. Are you making any money on whatever it is you're doing? If you are, that is something people want to hear about. Yeah. That is just hands down something people want to hear about, whether they want to be the next you, whether they'll be a client, whether they'll refer you. You just need to kind of put yourself out there. And so I always start with the why. And I think it really helps, I know in person, and I think, I'm going to try to scale this into course form. And I have a whole mindset component actually for the course I've built. Oh, good. Because I do think it's important that people know that, one, you don't need to be an extrovert. You don't need to be Gary. You don't need to be on video all the time. I know you promote a lot of video, and I understand that, but for a lot of people it is uncomfortable. Maybe they're better writers. Maybe there's another way that they can communicate and get more comfortable. Yeah. So it's more of that personal connection and me actually genuinely being interested in what they're saying. Yeah. And that gets them talking about it. And then you've had people, and I've talked to people in the most random industries, and they're like, oh my God, you care about this? And then they get excited. It's you actually are excited about the thing that you do. And then for a lot of people, if they're not excited about the thing they do, a lot of what I end up doing is trying to figure out what it is they actually want. And it's getting that clarity. That's the first piece anyway.
You need to know that quick.
And they know, basically, I can tell what somebody actually wants through a series of questions. It keeps popping up. There are common themes that always end up coming up. And, there's people who come to me and they're like, oh, I started here and then I was there and then I was doing this. And so my brand isn't cohesive. For me, what I was doing in entertainment, now I look back, when I was trying to rep different people, I'm working on all of these different things, I was doing content development and personal branding. That's exactly what I was doing in Hollywood, 100%. I have a through line. And with law, that's what I was doing. I'm positioning things. I'm positioning facts to tell a story to give to someone else, to convince them of my side. That's marketing. That's branding. Everybody has something. They just think it's random. They just need it to kind of go down that funnel.
Yeah. Okay. So if somebody's like, okay, I definitely have a story. I definitely know that I'm different. I'm a little bit special. There's something to this, and I just need to start getting my name out there. What do you think is the biggest opportunity right at this moment in time for somebody to go, okay, time for me to start sharing my message? Is it a specific platform? Is it a specific way of presenting your ideas? What do you think someone should do if they were just going to do something really simple today to get the word out about who they are and what they do well?
And we talked about this. I'm all in on LinkedIn right now.
Yeah.
I think LinkedIn for anything, and I'm talking, it's not just B2B, B2C. If you're an influencer, any of that stuff, I think that's a huge white space right now for a lot of reasons with the platform. But for just to start, if somebody came to me, I would want to know what they want out of it. It's not only who you are and what makes you special, it's also what do you want. because a lot of times, like we talked about money at the beginning, and then when I found out money wasn't it, there are people who do get off on the idea of vanity metrics.
Yeah.
And
Fame.
LinkedIn is not
Yeah.
about that. And I do think you can, people are getting speaking gigs from it, brand deals and all of these things. But some people want to see the, million number by their name. So you need to
Okay,
be
so then let's say somebody comes to the table like totally on the right page about, listen, if you show me results in my business, they could be a speaker, I want more speaking gigs. They
LinkedIn.
could be a consultant, they want more consulting, right? Like if I make content, I'm getting conversions in my business. I may not have the pretty numbers that would look good on a media kit, but I'm not looking for that type of partnership. I just want to be better known as a thought leader in my space and convert business based
hands
on
down
that.
LinkedIn.
It's LinkedIn.
No questions asked. Hands down, no other
So
platform.
what are they doing? Are they just engaging it more? Like, should they be posting video? I know video, the number of times I've gotten the question at the end of a keynote that I give about video, and I haven't talked about LinkedIn in this particular presentation, I get the question. And everyone wants to know, what do you think about LinkedIn video? And we've done a little bit. Blake's here with me today. Blake's been helping me produce some video for LinkedIn. And it's not been super consistent, but we were definitely testing the waters there. And it's interesting, like the trajectory of a video. It takes some time, but it definitely gets a lot of attention, I think, because of how the connections work. But anyway, that's sort of my tangent about video. But what do you think somebody should be like digging into if they're like, okay, LinkedIn, let's go?
It is. So I'm someone who is more scared of video. I'm finally digging into it. I am not scared of video on LinkedIn.
Really?
You don't need to be. It's so new. It only came out in 2017.
Yeah.
And it's like been a year old, actually.
That's so crazy to think
And
about,
so
too.
it's really easy for it to.
Yeah.
I have a video that's like this that has 40,000 views on it. And I only have, like now at this point, 11,000 followers. But that's a big number for the platform.
Big.
On, I guess, some of the highest viewed video people have like 18 to 30,000 followers. We're not talking millions.
Yeah.
And you don't
that's
need
wild
to
to think
have
about. What a scale.
It's crazy. And it is not uncommon to get higher reach and engagement numbers than you have followers and connections. That is a regular occurrence.
Yeah, because I think because of the way the connections work. I mean, I see people's updates on LinkedIn all the time that I'm not necessarily connected to.
Boom.
Yeah.
So that's the thing it is the only platform that I can think of that you can, that I have to work on all of these, where you can have, if you have your profile set and you do that clarity piece, you don't even need to make content if you don't want to grow and get business. I've gotten business off of smart comments I've left.
Oh, wow.
And it's insane. I'm trying to tell everybody about it because I know that LinkedIn has a branding problem, frankly.
Yeah.
Like as soon as you say it, they're like, oh, career services and resumes and HR. Like, I'm not going there. And it's like, no, you don't understand. I've been doing this I've been posting on LinkedIn less than a year, giving it definitely less than an hour a week, like no thought. Regular post, like doing my thing, doing what I know to do.
Like content, not necessarily engagement in the same amount of time.
Even let's say less than an hour a week, engagement and content and everything. I know it takes me longer to post on Instagram. I've gotten high-paying, high-quality clients, brand deal offers, paid and unpaid speaking gigs, like literally podcasts, PR, all of the things, all inbound. 100% inbound.
Wow.
All free. I didn't spend a dime. It was so efficient. And it's like, why isn't everybody doing this?
So it's as simple as like if you were to get started right this second, turn off this podcast and you could just start
like
leaving thoughtful comments and engaging with people who maybe are in at least the field with whom you're trying to work with. And then you should be making your own content because of course like that's going to help with build thought leadership.
The beauty of LinkedIn for me is that not only like, listen, video's great and people are hot on video now.
Sure.
But if you are a writer or if you just, even like, I've actually taken tweets. I took some tweet that I thought of the other day and I put it on LinkedIn and that reached like 22,000 people because it was interesting, to my audience. It was related to branding. Yeah. And then people saw it. The algorithm is just super straightforward. They watch everything. My understanding, they watch everything that you're doing. They know who you're connecting with. They know who you're engaging with. They need to keep you on this platform to make money. All these platforms make money by serving you ads and you buying the tools, and they can't sell any of that if you're not on the platform. So all of this started happening in 2017, really, after Microsoft acquired them in 2016. They started making the changes. They're paying attention. It's still going to be a professional platform, but what's happening is real. Yeah. And it is early. So
That's
reset
awesome.
your password, do the whole thing, download the app. It just, also when it comes to virality, it doesn't need to be video. It can be, like I said, it can be a tweet length thing. It can be
I've seen
an
photos
article.
get crazy, just like reposted. Yeah. Just people being a little bit more human on the platform seems to be resonating a lot. Just
100%.
a selfie on LinkedIn is so crazy at this point, where it's old on Instagram. It's really it's just so fascinating, all of it. But, I don't want to run out of time before I talk more, a little bit more about your journey. I think this like LinkedIn piece is going to be super useful to people who are thinking about building a personal brand that's also in tandem with a business. But speaking of business, I mean, you've been on your own now for a year?
Yes, like a year and a half.
How's it been going? Like, what do you think was the hardest transition for you now that this is your first time really like on your own in business?
What was the hardest transition? I love it.
Yeah.
I will say, like, I love the stress of having it only on me. I know that sounds weird, but it's oddly stressful to have to navigate working for someone else and then kind of the other elements that are involved in working for someone else. I like that I have to touch all the pieces, but I know what I'm trying to build.
Yeah.
What was interesting for me was realizing I wasn't dreaming and thinking big enough. You know, I spent all this time and I'm like, oh, I'm going to make money, and good money, 6 figures a year, which it is.
Yeah.
But then going off and having those 2 clients at first. And so I was doing that from, let's say, May 2017 when I left to like the new year. It was just like working at VaynerTalent, but I was working for myself. And I loved working for Gary specifically. Like, I loved his brand.
Right.
And this just wasn't the same. I'm like, I'm working like the same job, and it's like I have 2 bosses. This isn't working for me. Yeah. So it's been figuring out what actually works in terms of a business model, how I want to help people. I didn't know how I wanted to help people at scale. That wasn't even the kind of verbiage I would talk about however long ago.
Right.
And basically I started putting out, I knew I needed to put out consistent content. I started the podcast, Beyond Influential, in October of last year. And I knew I had to put it out every week. So this is like week 47. Oh, wow. And I realized the feedback that I'm getting, and even I don't look at the numbers, I don't care about the downloads, I just know I need to keep putting it out, and all of these things I learned from, the stuff
Where
with
do
Gary.
people communicate with you when they aren't listening to the podcast? Like when they have a thought, or you help them with an aha moment, or they listen to the podcast, something cool happened, do they tweet you? Are they on Instagram?
Instagram.
Okay, cool.
Instagram mostly.
So your focus is probably LinkedIn and Instagram, because Instagram is very much like, at least, well, it's where most generations are, if we're being honest. But LinkedIn tends to be a more business conversation then for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's funny because LinkedIn people want me to talk to them about Instagram, and Instagram people want me to talk to them about LinkedIn.
Oh, you must be really good at what you do, because they got the memo. That's awesome.
Thank you. So it's been about pivoting. It's been, you're used to that steady check. My boyfriend has been key. It's, he was like, just figure it out. I've had to say no to things more. It's been every 3 months.
If you're figuring that out in the first year, that's great news.
I needed to learn to say no. I definitely figured that out this year, where it was like, oh, I was taking on too much stuff, and then I couldn't do what I needed to do. And then somebody would come up who wasn't really the ideal client, was willing to pay me really well. And I was like, no, I need to say no to this so I can say yes to something that's right.
Right.
Oh, also super important. Hiring a lawyer, very important. Finding somebody who knows finances and taxes. I didn't realize how much money I was going to have to give for self-employment and just in general to the California government.
Bless their souls.
Yeah. So there's all of these fun lessons. And I was like, oh, I make great money. And then I was like, oh, I didn't really make as great money, actually. So it was just, it's like lesson after lesson. But I honestly know that I've learned more in this year and a half than I've ever learned. And now I'm reading all of these books. I need to learn to get to where I want to go. I realize I can do so much more. So now my aspirations change, and even what I want probably in the next year and probably isn't even big enough. Yeah. Like what's happened for you in the last year is so huge, and it's really obvious that each year is a pretty big jump. And where I felt comfortable or uncomfortable starting the podcast last year, my confidence is, 200-fold. Yeah. It's just weird to look back, and I think you pay more attention to it when you're not, for me, when I'm not grinding someone else's grind.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you said that. So so I can get a really good idea, I want to get specific with sort of like your day. When you start working for yourself, like all of a sudden you have 100% complete control of your time, which is super sexy and also a
Yes,
lot. And as I said before, getting really good at saying no is a big piece of this. But can you just kind of walk through what does not a day look like, but just like how do you kick off your day? Like what does a good morning routine look like for you to help you make sure that you're in the right mindset to run your business the rest of the day?
So this was huge for me, especially because law was one of these 24/7 type jobs. Entertainment, God, if you didn't respond to an email, people acted like somebody was going to die. You know, people asked me how it was working with Gary and like kind of the hustle culture.
Yeah.
I was used to that.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't new. He worked. And what was nice about him is he actually was doing work. He was working harder than everybody else anyway. So it was like nice that we were all working in tandem as opposed for working for somebody, killing yourself, and then they're not doing any work.
Absolutely.
So I like that about him. But that was an adjustment for me of not wanting to just get up and start working. There are definitely times at the beginning where it's like, okay, it's 6 a.m.
Yeah.
I would just start getting on the computer or immediately reach for the
phone.
phone.
I totally did that. First 2 years at least, because it was like, okay, it's up to me. Let's go to work.
Yeah, I got to do this.
Yeah.
I got to make it happen. And at the beginning too, and this goes back to the saying yes, it's like, oh, these people actually want to speak to me, or they want to have coffee, or they want to do this, or they want me to come to this event, and it was exciting, and I'm trying to do everything. I was burning out very quickly. And also when I first left, one of the clients I was working with, I was traveling with him to all of his speaking engagements, and he had one of kind of like a Gary type schedule. So I was on a plane all the time. And I wasn't, I love traveling, but this wasn't traveling. This was like going in and then producing and doing all sorts of stuff. So that kind of really messed up. I actually felt really not well during those first like 6 months. Like my stomach was bothering me all the time. I was like, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of gotten into a different headspace. I've realized also over the last year how important mindset is. I never did any kind of mindset work. If you told me I would be journaling affirmations a year ago even, I'd be like, that's dumb. Nope, not anymore. So I wake up and I try not to look at my phone, but I do look at my phone but fairly often just to make sure. Work out. I need to work out in the morning. I get my best thoughts doing cardio. I'm not saying like I'm going to a class or I'm going to go lift weights. I just need to like get on the elliptical or treadmill or walk around for like 30 to 45 minutes, whatever it means.
Just move the body. Just like get the body to do something so the mind will kick off too.
And that's where I think there, and if I ever have to drive, I can get good thinking there or the shower. Those are like my
Even
three
driving
areas.
in LA?
Even driving in LA.
Yeah. You sit in traffic a lot.
Yes. But that's a lot of good thinking time. The worst is you're not supposed to text, and I
no
need to get better
texting.
with the voice memos.
Just hold the steering wheel. And just so everyone knows, we're actually in LA right now. I came to you, and you welcomed us into your apartment complex. I'm just sort of like showing up at people's houses and saying, "Can I talk to you for my podcast?" So thank you for allowing me to do that.
No, thank you.
I feel like everyone has left your business center now because we're talking so loudly, but that's okay.
Whatever. I've had to leave before for other people, so I don't feel bad.
Oh my God. Okay, so this has been super helpful. I think there's a lot of people listening who are interested in this influencer thing, but I think there's a big conversation that goes into it, and you really presented that today with the idea of what are your goals actually? And just because you want to be an influencer doesn't mean that you really understand what the grand scale of that's going to be and if you're even going to get what you want out of it. So thank you so much for sharing that. Before I ask you my final question, I'd love to hear sort of like what you're up to right now, what you want people to go check out, where can we follow you on Instagram and LinkedIn and all that kind of fun stuff.
So I have been full force on this LinkedIn thing since I saw just what a game changer it's been. So many clients, and just not only for myself, but so many clients who've just seen crazy results, whether it's monetary or influence-based. I do think it's the one place where you can really grow real world influence and actually get tangible results, whether it's brand deal, whatever it is that you want. And I know it works for any industry. And people are just happy with what they're seeing. Even people I've just told about it who are starting to use it, they're like, oh my God, why didn't I know about this earlier? So I feel like that's while everyone's focusing on Instagram and kind of the Instagram influencer and beating that algorithm, why don't you play the game that nobody's playing right now? Yeah. So my message is getting that out.
You sound like our friend Brian Fanzo.
Yeah. Well, I did talk to him yesterday.
I zag. That's what he says.
But it's true. Like it's the whole like red ocean, blue ocean strategy thing. And so, but it's the same principles. So the principles that work on This is me just going deep. I'm like,
Love
the principles that work on Instagram work on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Great. So I am putting out a course. It's called the LinkedIn Laws. If people want to find me, they can go to BrittanyKrystle.com and BrittanyKrystle.com/LinkedIn. I will have all the information. I'm doing a free training on basically why LinkedIn is your best kept secret that everyone's sleeping on. And so that is kind of my next thing for the little bit. You know, I've had to learn all of the new skills of trying to scale because I realized the one-to-one thing is great, but the knowledge I have, I love to help people actually grow their business. And the people that really need the help growing their business probably can't afford an agency, probably need to scale it themselves, or need to hire an intern.
That's
like
the
you
story
can buy
of my
it.
life too. Yeah.
It's
so important for them to be able to have something that they can access on their own time from the person that they want it from. I mean, it's the whole reason why you build your brand.
Exactly.
Super smart.
So that's happening. Still building out the podcast. I still have to do the podcast every
Yeah,
week.
everybody needs to check out Beyond Influential. We don't remember which episode I was, but we're hoping I'm going to make a comeback.
It was in the teens, but she's definitely making a comeback. And so, yeah, I'm at Brittany Krystle everywhere.
Cool.
You can find me on... I'm good about responding, probably. Sometimes I'm a little delayed, but I try to get back to as many people as possible.
Awesome. Well, I will link to all that stuff in the notes. And before I leave you, I would like to know your take on this. What does it mean to you to go after the life that you want?
I'm like, the first thing that came into my head was, it means everything. It means everything. I just don't understand why I'm alive if I'm not going after the things that I want. There's just no purpose. I need something bigger. And like I said, I keep coming up. Once you hit something, you're like, oh no, there's more here. So it means everything. And we're in the best fucking time for it.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you, Amy.
Let's do a quick detail recap of Amy's chat with Brittany Krystle. Finding fulfillment in your career may not take a traditional path. It's okay to try out a few new places and industries to discover what you do well and what makes you interesting, because everyone is interesting. Remember, your mindset really matters. Get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a hop and hub just waiting for you to join. Start sharing your thoughts in any form, video, short snippets, or longer articles, and connect with the people who are interested in your path. And when you're in business for yourself, it's important to learn how to say no so that you can say yes to the things that really matter. You have to make time for the stuff that matters, and that may mean saying no to things that just aren't right for you, despite them coming with a really nice price tag. Don't forget that everything that Amy and Brittany talked about today will be linked in the show notes over at detailspodcast.com. This was an excellent episode. Do you love getting advice straight to your earbuds? Would you like some simple steps for living your best life every day? Amy wants to send you a free audio training with the 7 essential details for going after the life that you want. To receive this audiogram, subscribe to this podcast and take a screenshot to show you're subscribed. Email your screenshot to hello@detailspodcast.com with audiogram please in the subject line, and we'll send it right over to you. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to discover even more actionable details, head over to Amy TV by typing the URL in your browser, youtube.com/AmyTV, or search for Amy Landino in your YouTube app. As Amy says, subscribe for good vibes, and remember to go after the life that you want. Cheers!